The interbank forex market. What did that do? The spread that was between 12 and 15% has now shrunk to between 2 and 3 shillings, or difference. That is point number one. Number two, we went and negotiated for credit on all our petroleum products. So we've negotiated 6 months to ease the pressure on the dollar. In fact, many importers were finding it difficult to get dollars to import raw materials. We have since sorted out that problem. The liquidity around the dollar market has improved.
Okay.
We've allowed the dollar to find its own level. We are not artificially managing the exchange rate, because managing it artificially costs us money. So we have an issue there. So when I came into office also, I found that we had commitments of 900 billion Kenya shillings on the roads. Yeah, 900 billion. I have tried to work with the various departments, Kera, Kura, Kenha, to try and understand how do we manage this 900 billion. We've tried to cut it down. We've tried to stop some of the roads that have not started. We've died. But we still remain with close to about 680 billion that we have to manage. If I have to complete these roads, I need extra money to do it. And every place I go, I was yesterday in Nyandarua. Communities, people, leaders tell us, we need a road here, Mr. President. We need a road here. Mm-hmm. We need to finish the Mau Mau roads. You need to finish this. You need to do this. We need an extra road. They were even telling me there is a road called Kinamba to some place. So that whole equation changed. But what have I done? I have said yes. We're going to increase the VAT by 8% for 2 reasons. Mm-hmm. Number one, because having differential rates, one at 8%, others at 16%, poses a problem, an integrity problem. People use it as a loophole to manipulate numbers, VAT in, VAT out. So the advice that my economic team working with Treasury gave was we must eliminate this loophole that people are exploiting, number one. Number two, this 8% that we are adding is going to give us about 50 billion shillings. It will begin to deal with the problem of roads across the country.
Okay.
But what have I done to balance it out? Because I made a commitment that we need to relook, right? I have removed on the same fuel, as we add 8%, I have removed road 3.5% road development levy from fuel. I have removed 2% of IDF on the same fuel. And to balance it out, because it is the same Kenyan who is going to pay from their pocket, I have removed VAT 8% on gas. And I have removed other taxes that I'm going to explain to you, about 14 other taxes that I have removed to try and even so that we have a balanced budget.
Okay. We'll talk about the other taxes as proposed in the finance bill, which will come before Parliament. But you have mentioned that there is a team of economic advisors. Right. David Ndii has been in your campaign team throughout the campaign before the elections. So is the current National Treasury Cabinet Secretary, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u. When you came to the presidential debate and you made the remarks on the 26th of July,
I don't know why people are
said in that bracket, 15 almost you said, but we need to integrate at least these 15 different types of taxes. Did they not advise you, or you did not take the advice?
Precisely, if you heard me clearly, there are many other taxes that we have since removed. So you must look at it in context. Yeah? What my economic team advised that time is that we need to relook at these taxes. When we came into government, we found a situation. The country was in a crisis. And by the way, I have had to make very difficult decisions. In fact, coming into office, I had to cancel the borrowing of about 300 billion shillings that the intention was to borrow that would have taken the country down the cliff. I had to step in and stop many of the subsidies that were being dished left, right, and center. I had to make many changes. I had to reorganize the whole budget because we found a country headed and sliding into bankruptcy. And so when you find that kind of situation, you have to deal with the situation with the urgency and with the acuteness of thinking that is required.
Okay.
Yeah? You don't operate outside a context. So the question that you have asked me, did we remove some? Did we look at the fuel issue? Yes. We said, while it is true that we have a crisis and we have to deal with a pending bill of 700 billion for the roads that we have, while it is also true that we have to look at what additionally we can do, but we need to put a relief on Kenyans.
Okay. That's
why, apart from, and you know the reason why the tax on the VAT on fuel or petroleum products is much more attractive is because it is spread across all Kenyans. So everybody carries a small bit of it.
Okay.
But we have also knocked down other taxes from the same fuel, as I have told you. IDF we have taken down, road development levy we've taken it down, and a host of other taxes that we have taken down.
Okay. Final question on this. This is an issue, Mr. President, which dates back to 2013 as a condition by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, in which then the leader of the majority party, the current defense CS who sits in cabinet, Adan Duale, said that the 181 MPs have been convinced by the party leadership, the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, and his deputy, William Ruto, on the rationale of the 8% VAT on petroleum products. He continued, 181 is a very big number and will convince our members. And this being a precautionary facility by the IMF, can you tell the Kenyan people that there is no extra hand of pressure on the Kenyan government by the International Monetary Fund?
My good friend, the International Monetary Fund does not run the government of Kenya. I do. IMF does not make decisions for the government of Kenya. I do. IMF are our partners. They work with us on our priorities. They work with us on our proposals. They support us where they can. They give us advice where they can, but ultimately, we make the decisions ourselves. And it is not up to IMF to see how to sort out the 680 billion that we have on the road sector. It is not up to any other person. It is up to us. When I get out of this office and go to this village and that constituency and that ward, it is not the IMF that is asked about roads. It is the government of Kenya that I run. So I think there is always this thinking that external factors dictate to us. I think you know me better. Mm-hmm. I can stand up to any pressure from any corner. Mm-hmm. I make the right decisions for our country.
Your Excellency, you've said, and this is not just today, even previously, that the Jubilee handshake administration went on an irresponsible borrowing spree. They took loans worth 4.1 trillion shillings in just the 5 years of 2018 to 2022. How much is our public debt today, Mr. President?
Our public debt is in the region of 8.8 trillion, close to 9 trillion. That's where we are. And so that you can contextualize this, it is the reason why, if you look at this budget, I have made a deliberate, conscious decision. In fact, against the advice of IMF. IMF actually wanted us to borrow slightly more. I told them no. I told them no, we're not borrowing. And that is why, if you look at the fiscal deficit, the money we are borrowing, we have reduced it from 1.1 trillion last year to 630 billion this year. We have reduced almost 500 billion because I am conscious that we are not in a good place. I am also aware what is happening to other countries. There are countries in our continent that have defaulted in their payments. When I am president, Kenya will not go that route. And that is why, even when, many people thought it was a joke, I told them, we are not borrowing beyond where we are.
So how much are you planning to borrow in this year?
That is why, Latif, you saw there was a delay of salaries for about 2-3 days in April.
Yep. Yes.
Because, some characters thought that I was joking. I told them, listen, we're going to live within our means. Even if we have to delay for salaries for 2-3 days, we will. So that people begin to internalize that we cannot continue borrowing. And let me tell you, I have had many people say, you can't tax there is no country that can tax itself into prosperity. That's correct. Yeah? But you cannot accumulate debt into bankruptcy as an option. It cannot be an option, right? And there is a question I want to ask my fellow countrymen and women. Are we overtaxed? That is the question that we need to ask. And I want to answer that question. Yeah. Are Kenyans overtaxed? Let me give you the statistics. OECD countries, OECD countries, the tax as a percentage of GDP, the average is 34% of GDP, 34%. You have from Turkey, which is 22% of GDP, to France, which is 45% of GDP. Okay? Let's leave the OECD. Let us come to our continent. Our peers, South Africa, Tunisia, Morocco. They are between 23 and 28% of GDP. Tax as a percentage of GDP. Where is Kenya? Kenya is at 14%. Kenya is at 14%, meaning we are paying half in terms of tax what our peers in our continent are paying. And you see, society is reflected by the quality of public goods, roads, hospitals, schools, water. That is what a society is measured. If you will find that if you don't have working schools, if you don't have no running water, if you don't have good roads, you cannot, what kind of society are you? So the big question, and I want to tell my countrymen and women, please, we are not overtaxing ourselves. In fact, If we were to match our peers, my intention is to take this slowly, the way Mwai Kibaki did. When Mwai Kibaki came into office, we were collecting about 220 billion. By the time he was leaving in 10 years, we were collecting almost $1 trillion. He had moved it 4 times, right?
Yep.
Now we are at 14. If you look at the budget this year, I want to move it from 14 to 16% of GDP. By God's grace, maybe next year, 18, maybe like that.
Yeah.
Because we have to be realistic, you know? If we do not pay taxes, we cannot be like the countries we want to be. We want to be in their shoes. We will be going backwards. So the real cardinal, because, and I want to tell my good friends, you know, it's good to have information. Because I hear many people are saying, oh, you know, we are being overtaxed. The real issue is that our tax as a percentage of GDP, if we manage to get this finance bill through, we will move from 14 to 16. We will still be way below what our peers are.
I want to come back onto the issue of debt because, I mean, it's also influencing how much you want to spend in the next financial year and raising revenue to repay this debt. 1.2 trillion shillings, if I'm not wrong, is our debt bill in the next financial year. And if you just look at how much we are paying in terms of debt, and then you look back at that close to 9 trillion shillings that has been borrowed in the last 10, 15 years, questions are, where has that money gone? And so I want to ask you, Mr. President, do you feel that the money that has been borrowed has actually gone to be value for Kenyans?
I do not want to point fingers at no administration. I do not want to say what happened in the last administration. I have said enough of it. I just want to speak to the present and to the future. And I want to tell my countrymen and women that I want to be held to account. I am ready. That is why I believe in accountability. For the first time, I am the one who pushed for the change of standing orders so that ministers of my administration can go to Parliament and ask questions because we want accountability. As we talk, I am pushing so that we have an office in Parliament of the leader of opposition funded by the government of Kenya to make sure that public resources are being used appropriately.
And I like what you're saying.
That is exactly what I want because I want, as I collect taxes, as the people of Kenya contribute their money as taxes, they must be put to good use. They should not be put in projects like the BBI.
Okay.
They should not be put in projects like the Azimio thing. They must be put in tangible projects that make a difference in the lives of the people.
So with that then, Mr. President, are you prepared in your administration to publish the debt register? Because this is one thing that even the previous parliaments have tried to push. It hasn't been published. To date, we know the figure. We don't know the details. Are you prepared to publish the debt register, audit the debt register, and to hold anybody accountable for any money that may have been borrowed and misappropriated?
Why not?
When will this happen?
Why not? You know, we have, in fact, we already have a bill in Parliament, for purposes of placing on record any borrowing that is done by the government of Kenya. It must be borrowing that is made available so that the people of Kenya who ultimately have to pay must hold government to account. That we are borrowing this money for this purpose, for this purpose, for this purpose. I have explained in this budget the 630 billion which we have to borrow beyond our taxes. I have laid it clearly on how are we going to use it. Where is it going to go? It is not going to go to recurrent budget. It is not going to pay debts. It is going to be invested in production, in making sure that we have fertilizer for our farmers, We have developed the tea value chain, the coffee value chain, leather value chain, textile value chain, edible oil value chain. And if you look at the budget, we have clearly isolated, including making sure that we begin the journey to bring our manufacturing as a percentage of GDP, which went down from 9 to 7, in the next 5 years, I want it to be at 15%. By 2030, I want manufacturing as a percentage of our GDP to be at 20%. That's why we are calling it 20 by 30. That is the trajectory I want us to go. I also want to move our exports. That's why, if you see in this budget, we have many areas where we have imposed taxes. We have imposed taxes on imported fish. We have imposed taxes on imported furniture. We've imposed taxes on imported steel. We have imposed taxes on imported cement because we want to grow our own manufacturing capacity. Because by growing our own manufacturing capacity, we create jobs, we create opportunities for work, and we build our own manufacturing capacity using our own products. So I have, with clarity, I can explain where we are going to put every cent.
Okay.
How we are going to invest in the leather value chain.
Mr. President,
how we are going to invest in the textile value chain.
nafikiri kwa